Hey guys, day 3 of our Ninja Live challenge, and I am Victoria Terrazzano. I'm coming to you live from Melbourne, Australia. And if you are watching this live, please comment live down below. If you're watching this on the replay, give me a hashtag replay so that I can come and find you and say hello. If it's your first time, please feel free to put an emoji or a comment underneath so that I can sort of, check in with you and see what you thought. We're doing 5 lives this week. We normally do one a week on a Monday. But this week, special occasion, so we're doing a personal growth challenge, and one of those is to try and do 5 lives. And what I'd like to do is get a little bit more interaction on the lives, actually. So I'd love it if you guys had any comments or ideas or suggestions or anything that you wanted to say. And tonight's topic is actually about Marie Kondo and the KonMari method of tidying. And I know this is huge. And I know people love it. So someone out there must have an opinion on it, or they must love it or hate it or think it's weird. So yes, and I'm actually looking at it from a slightly different perspective today. So I've noticed that a lot of people, there's a lot of superficial stuff or a superficial knowledge about it. Oh, it's that tidying one. It's the one that makes you throw everything away. You go away, your wife's clean the whole house, blah, blah, blah. A lot of that's kind of jokes, and it's a deliberate misunderstanding of what the method is. But what I found really fascinating when I watched the series and I looked into the method and I thought about the method a lot was actually the benefits that it can have for our children. Okay, so we have autism in our family, and we'll deal with that a lot. So we have a lot of executive function delay, issues with transitioning between one thing and another thing, issues with letting go, a lot of extreme and strong attachments to things, not people, not necessarily feelings, but actual, random items like sticks, stones, whatever. And what I found interesting as I was watching the KonMari series was actually the way that the method builds on executive function skills. And it's actually going to be a fantastic tool in our house for developing those skills in our children. And I thought that was quite interesting. And I wondered if other people had noticed it, or if other people had thought that this might be good. And if they hadn't, I thought I'd highlight it. So the KonMari method is fantastic, first of all, and it really is good. And it works on the basis that if there is a lot of clutter in your house that is stressful, it's overwhelming, it's actually not a comfortable place to be, and it becomes very difficult for you to find things because you can't see where anything is. And it also becomes difficult for you to appreciate and actually use everything you've got because you have so much stuff. So a lot of the KonMari method is about recognizing that actually our minds are happiest and most at peace when they're in a calm and serene environment. Okay. Now that's not to say get rid of everything you own. That's not what the method is at all. But it's about how you store that stuff, how much of it is visible, how much of it's in the way. It's about everything having a place and everything being in its home so that you can be calm and restful. And the funny thing is, that's kind of how the brain works too. So within autism, for example, there's a lot of overwhelm. There's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of difficulty because there's a lot going on in the brain. So many neurons firing at once, so much information that it's actually really, really difficult to focus on and concentrate and sort out. And a lot of that process makes life a little bit tougher. So when you are finally focusing on one thing, if you then have to move on from that before you're ready or before you finish processing, that's really difficult. Okay, so the nice thing about the KonMari method is it kind of practices gratitude, which is a lot of it is all growth mindset stuff and stuff that's really good for personal development. Like it's all like the theory behind it and the process in it is actually going to help you grow as an individual, which is fantastic. Okay, so one of the things that you need to do within the KonMari method is to actually recognize and appreciate where you're at now. You need to know that there's been a journey to get here, and all the things that you have in your life and in your house at the moment have served a purpose and they have got you where they are. And it's not bad that you own them, and it's not terrible, and you should never feel guilty about it or anything like that. But you need to recognize, respect, and appreciate everything that it's done for you in getting you this far, and then assess it. And you need to look at where your life is now, and you need to look at where you want your life to be and ask yourself, do I need this particular thing in my future? Is it still going to serve me? Has it got more to do for me, or has it done enough for me and I can thank it and I can move on? Now, that in itself is a nice process. The idea of knowing what's still useful to you now and what you just kind of have an emotional attachment to and what's actually going to benefit you in the future, That's a nice idea. That's goal setting. That's setting ideas for how you want your life to look. That's really a thought that a lot of people don't actually bother getting. Okay. But the nice thing about KonMari is they don't expect you to start knowing what you want your life to look like. They build that skill slowly through a process, working through the individual things in your life. So, you start with your clothes because more often than not, some people are massively attached to their clothes, but more often than not, people recognize that clothes are transient, that clothes are there for when you're a particular size or if particular weather or particular activities, and they're used to having to let go of clothes either because they grew or whatever. So clothes is the easiest thing for you to go through and actually start letting go of, to practice the skill of letting go of things that you no longer need. Okay. And I think the emotional attachment to things is really hard. And when children are little, they're still developing, that ability to let go. And the nice thing about the KonMari method is because it has two elements to it. First, you have to respect that other people in the house have responsibility for their own things, but you have to allow them to make their own choices. And that allows, like if you're doing it with your kids, that allows your kids to have that responsibility and that ownership over their own things, which is really nice for them. And it helps them to feel a bit more mature. Okay. But then on top of that, you have to respect their choices, which means that you are acknowledging them and their ability to decide what is good or bad, which is great. But the nice thing about it is it actually makes them understand what they've got and what they want. And sometimes that's a really hard choice. So, you can start smaller than that. You don't have to say to them, what are you going to let go of? Because your kid's going to want to keep everything. Like they're going to want to keep everything, particularly when they start. Okay. Hi, Janelle. How you going? We're just talking about the KonMari method and how I've been using it to skill build for my autistic child. And it's fantastic. But yeah, so we've now got them folding their own clothes. And that's almost like a meditation thing, it helps you appreciate that it's your clothes and that you own them, for starters. It's a nice calm thing. It's something that he can focus on. It's not too difficult, but it just sort of sits and it just gives him an activity to do. So it's quite a nice downtime session for him. I'm great, thanks. I am good. Thanks for asking. So that in itself is like a nice little moment. They're having to look after his own things, but also by putting his own clothes away, he knows where they are. Makes it easier for him when I say to him, can you go and get a t-shirt? Can you go and get some shorts? Can you go and, and we talk about where his clothes are and finding them when he wants to get dressed and things like that, which is good. But when it comes to things like the toys, he does not have the skills to let go yet. That's a new skill. That's something that he can't transition. He can't move between things. He can't say, I don't need that anymore, because he does have this really strong attachment to it, And this is something that when he develops the skill to let it go and he releases some of his ownership or connection over it, it's going to improve his ability to share as well. He's going to be able to, share things with others without feeling like, oh, they're using my thing, which is another skill that he really needs to develop. So when we get the toys out, and we're looking at the toys, we're not asking him which ones do you want to keep and which ones do you want to throw away. What we're asking him to do is get all the toys, which is why you have to put them all together, and then actually put them into order of preference. Okay. Now, the nice thing about doing it that way is that he's then focusing on the things that he wants to keep, which allows him to remove his focus from the things that he's trying to get rid of. Because that's what he struggles with. When he's trying to get rid of it and his focus is totally on what he's losing, he feels like he's losing. If you get them to line everything up and put them in order of preference, they can focus a lot more heavily on the things that they want to keep, and that makes it a much more positive experience, but it allows them to practice the letting go, recognizing that by losing that, they're getting to keep something else. If you say to him, okay, we've laid all these out and you've got 100 toys, okay, you can keep 80 of them, say, and we're going to get rid of 20. He can pick which 80 he wants to keep and get rid of 20. He doesn't have to get rid of any really in the future, but it's about teaching him that skill in the first place. And because he can't let go of anything at the moment, he would never let go of anything, and he would never get to practice that skill if we didn't actually create a reason to cull. But I think the reason that she starts with the clothes is because people are already naturally used to, moving on from their clothes because they aged out of them, grew out of them, changed weight, whatever. Hi Claire, how you going? Glad to see you home, honey. And yeah, so for me, I feel like there's a lot of things in the steps of the KonMari method that, people joke about it and they say, oh, it's this, and it's nice to have a clean house. Like I'm not disputing. And some of the stuff is just pure genius. Like put everything vertically so you can see it. Like honestly, how obvious is that? Why were we not already doing that? I don't understand. It's amazing. But I just looked at it and I just thought, do you know what? The basis of it, the thought behind it, the actual process that goes into it is really, really good for developing executive function. It's really, really good to do with your children to build certain skills. And actually, we should all be doing this with our children to build the skill of, appreciating where we're at, recognizing the journey, but allowing ourselves to let go, particularly of material things. Like we don't need that many material things in our lives, and to go through that process where we learn how to let go of them and not feel like we're missing out or we're losing something. That's a skill that's going to be well worth having in the future, so I'm using the KonMari method to help develop certain skills in my children, and one of those is the ability to transition, the ability to let go, the ability to move forward, but also to have an idea of where they're moving forward to, and to actually even think about trying to produce an idea of where they're moving to, recognizing, yes, that alphabet puzzle was fun, but you're 5 now, you don't do it, you don't need it anymore, you're not getting the same thing, your fine motor skills are different, so you don't need your pegs anymore, and so it was lovely and it was fun to have, but do you think another child could get more benefit from it than you could? And we talk about which things are benefiting them now and what skills they're learning now and what skills they've already got, which is nice. It's another way to celebrate, you've already achieved this, how good is this, you've done so well, you don't need this anymore. And to actually celebrate that growth and celebrate that development. I think it's a fantastic idea that we should all be spring cleaning with our kids. And I don't know if anyone else has thought of it. I don't know if anyone else has seen that connection and that sort of link between learning how to let go and sort of really identifying the things of value in your life and really feeling more fulfilled because you appreciate more everything that you have rather than having so much stuff that you don't actually know what you've got. Like it's an odd situation. I think a lot of us have got a lot of stuff in our houses, particularly like if we've got kids. Like, let's be honest, you have a birthday party and everyone shows up with a present and all of a sudden you've got another 700 toys you've got to find a home for, and you already had a full house of toys anyway, and they unwrap and you struggle to find homes for them. But what you don't ever do is actually compare them to everything that you've got and look through everything you've got and go, actually, do I still need to keep all this stuff, or can I make room for these new ones another way? Another really nice thing that you can do with your kids while you're going through the KonMari method is actually talk about how you're going to get rid of things. So once they've decided which ones are the most important, which ones are going to serve them in the future or whatever, they know which ones they're getting rid of. You can then say to them, okay, are we going to sell these? Are we going to donate these? What are we going to do with them? Maybe even allow them to keep the money if they sell them in order to, incentivize them to think a bit more about what they could or couldn't get rid of, and you might find that they really start to enjoy that recycling process, that reusing process. Talk about kids who don't have half the things that they have. So many opportunities within this method to not only make your lives feel happier and calmer and more peaceful, because I'm not joking, your kids will not play with half the stuff if there's too many things. She doesn't say get rid of all their toys. She says, keep less of them out, visible, and rotate them so that the kids aren't overwhelmed by choice and they can get good value play out of what is in their playroom, and it's never about losing things in your life. That's not what the method is about. I think it's ever so funny that that's like the big joke about it and stuff, and that's not actually what it is. It's much more about appreciating the things in your life and making the most of them and getting more use out of them. A, because they're there. B, you know where to get them from. And C, you've already looked at them and gone, yeah, this is something I really want to keep, but the skills behind it, the skills in your brain, the skills that all of us don't really do much these days, that ability to let go and move on and to reduce your attachment to material things. Like, I think we could all really benefit from that. Hi, Beck. Hi. It's good to see you guys on. And for me, I watched the series and just went, this is going to be an amazing tool. You know, I'm always looking for things that develop executive function. It's the one thing that I struggle with my kids. It's the one thing that I never really know how to do. You know, we're doing this collaborative proactive solutions from Ross Green with the parenting to try and do exactly that, to build the executive function. But things like this, things that are not necessarily related but are still going to give that skill, still going to give that practice, these are things I love. These are things that I'm like, yes, I can do that. And he's not even going to know that we're practicing a skill there. He doesn't need to know that there's a deficit or a problem. He doesn't need to know that this is shoring up something that I think he's struggling with. It's just going to be how we do things now, you know, and that's really nice. So for me, I found it to be a really useful tool, and I think it'd be really interesting to see if others think it could benefit in that way, or if others have thought about it like that, or if anyone else is actually already doing this with their kids and is seeing benefits in other areas, or how they're behaving differently in other things, or whether they are able to share better when they're out because they don't have that strong inability to let go of things, you know. And I think practicing letting go, particularly of material things, is a really, really good thing, and that maybe we should all give it a go. Anyway, that's number 3. I will see you all tomorrow. Thanks for dropping on.